Get down! Everybody get down now! Brace for impact! Get your heads down now. Brace, brace! We're going down.
17-year-old student pilot landing gear fell off after takeoff, and she had to land alone. She didn't just see planes. She saw freedom, adventure, and a world full of possibilities. While other kids her age were playing video games or scrolling on their phones, Emily would draw airplanes in her notebook, carefully labeling the wings, the tail, the engine, and the cockpit. She read books about famous pilots, learned about flight mechanics, and even kept a journal of her dream flights. To her, flying was more than a hobby, it was a calling. At 17, Emily was finally old enough to start flight training. Her local airport wasn't a massive hub. It was a small, friendly place where pilots knew each other by name, and the smell of fuel and fresh air mingled in a comforting way. The flight school was run by Mr. Reynolds, a kind and experienced pilot who had seen thousands of flights and trained dozens of young enthusiasts like Emily. From the moment she walked into the small office with a mix of nervousness and excitement, she felt that this was where she belonged. The first few weeks of training were both thrilling and challenging. Emily learned how to read instruments, understand weather patterns, and communicate with the control tower. She practiced taxiing the plane on the ground, learning how to handle it carefully and precisely. Sometimes she would make mistakes. She might forget a step in the pre-flight checklist or miscalculate the speed while turning, but Mr. Reynolds was patient. He always reminded her, "Flying is about learning, Emily. Every mistake is a lesson, and every lesson brings you closer to the sky." Emily's parents supported her passion wholeheartedly. Her father, Daniel, had always been a bit of an adventurer himself. He loved taking his family camping, hiking, and exploring new places, and he often told Emily, "If you want to touch the sky, you have to work for it, but it's worth every moment." Her mother, Sarah, was more cautious but admired her daughter's determination. She would always remind Emily to double-check every detail before taking flight and to never underestimate the power of preparation. As weeks passed, Emily grew more confident in her abilities. She could take off and land with increasing smoothness, navigate using the instruments, and handle small emergencies under the watchful eye of her instructor. But nothing compared to the feeling of flying solo. The moment a student is allowed to take a plane into the sky alone is a milestone in any pilot's life, and Emily had been dreaming of this day for months. The morning of her first solo flight arrived with clear skies and a gentle breeze. Emily woke up early, her heart pounding with excitement. She went through her usual routine, checking her backpack for essentials, putting on her comfortable flight suit, and reviewing her flight checklist multiple times. She wanted to make sure she remembered everything, every button, lever, and procedure. At the airport, she met Mr. Reynolds for a quick briefing. He smiled warmly, sensing her nervous energy. "Today is your day, Emily. Remember, stay calm, trust yourself, and follow your training." "You've prepared for this. You can do it." Emily nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. She felt a mixture of fear and exhilaration. Her hands trembled slightly as she climbed into the small single-engine plane, the familiar smell of oil and leather filling her senses. Once inside, she fastened her seatbelt and adjusted her headset. She went through the pre-flight checks carefully. Instruments on, fuel levels checked, flaps ready, engine running smoothly. Everything seemed perfect. Taking a deep breath, she started the engine and listened to the familiar hum. Her heart beat faster as she taxied the plane toward the runway. When the tower cleared her for takeoff, Emily pushed the throttle forward and felt the plane respond instantly. The wheels began to roll faster, the wind rushing past her face through the open windows. Her stomach lifted slightly as the plane lifted off the ground. For a moment, it felt surreal. She was alone, in control, soaring above the world she had admired from below for so long. The sky looked different from up there. The houses and trees seemed tiny, the roads like threads weaving through the land. Emily felt a sense of calm wash over her despite the adrenaline rushing through her veins. She followed the planned flight path, checking the instruments and maintaining her altitude. Everything was going according to plan. As she flew over the small town, Emily thought about her journey to this moment. She remembered the countless hours studying flight manuals, the weekends spent at the airport, and the encouragement from her family and friends. She also thought about the doubts she had faced, sometimes wondering if she was too young, too inexperienced, or too small to handle the responsibility of a plane. But now, as she looked down at the world from above, all those doubts felt distant. She realized that passion, preparation, and determination were more powerful than fear. Emily decided to perform a few practice maneuvers within the safety of the designated flight area. She gently tilted the plane, feeling the lift of the wings, and executed smooth turns. She listened to the engine's steady rhythm and felt connected to the aircraft in a way that words could not describe. It was as if the plane had become an extension of herself, responding to every subtle movement, every thought. Time seemed to fly, and before she knew it, it was time to return to the airport. Emily followed the approach path carefully, lowering the altitude slowly and aligning the plane with the runway. She adjusted the flaps, checked the wind direction, and prepared for her first solo landing. Her hands were steady now, her mind focused entirely on the task ahead. The wheels touched the runway with a gentle bump, and the plane rolled smoothly to a stop. Emily couldn't help but smile, a mix of relief, pride, and pure joy flooding over her. She had done it. She had flown alone, controlled every aspect of the flight, and landed safely. The instructor's voice came over the radio, full of pride. "Well done, Emily. That was perfect. You're officially a solo pilot." Tears pricked Emily's eyes as she taxied the plane back to the hangar. Her heart was still racing, but now it was filled with an overwhelming sense of achievement. Her parents were waiting near the hangar, cheering and clapping when they saw her step out. "I'm so proud of you," her father said, hugging her tightly. "You've earned every bit of this moment." As the excitement settled, Emily reflected on what this milestone meant. Flying solo wasn't just a test of skill. It was a test of courage, discipline, and confidence. She realized that being a pilot wasn't about age or size. It was about dedication, preparation, and the ability to stay calm under pressure. The sky had always called to her, and now she had answered that call on her own. That day marked the beginning of a new chapter in Emily's life. She knew there would be more challenges ahead, more lessons to learn, and perhaps even moments of fear and uncertainty. But she also knew that she had the strength to face them. Every time she climbed into the cockpit from now on, she would carry the memory of that first solo flight, the wind in her hair, the hum of the engine, and the exhilarating feeling of freedom that only the sky could provide. Emily's story wasn't just about a girl taking her first solo flight. It was about following a dream with determination, embracing challenges with courage, and discovering the strength that comes from believing in oneself. Little did she know that this first solo flight would be the calm before an unexpected test of her skills, a challenge that would push her to the very limits of her courage and training. But for now, she simply enjoyed the moment, knowing she had taken the first step toward a lifetime of adventures in the sky. Emily had barely finished celebrating her first solo flight when a quiet sense of responsibility settled over her. She knew that flying was not just about the thrill of being in the sky. It was about vigilance, preparation, and staying alert at all times. The sky, she reminded herself, could be beautiful and peaceful one moment and challenging the next. She was learning, step by step, how to respect that unpredictability. On this particular afternoon, the weather was clear, the sun casting a golden glow over the small town below. Emily had decided to take another short solo flight, this time focusing on practice maneuvers and gentle turns. She felt confident. Her heart still raced with excitement, but she trusted herself and her training. After all, she had prepared for everything, or so she thought. Emily went through her pre-flight checklist carefully, double-checking every instrument and control. She fastened her seatbelt securely and adjusted her headset. The hum of the engine sounded steady, the instruments were normal, and the small plane felt ready. She taxied down the runway, feeling the familiar rush of anticipation. The plane responded beautifully as she accelerated and lifted off the ground. The world below shrank as she climbed higher, the wind rushing past the cockpit. For a few minutes, everything was perfect. Emily executed smooth turns, checked her altitude, and enjoyed the freedom of flight. She thought about the thrill of mastering the plane on her own, the quiet pride of knowing that she was fully capable. The landscape below was calming, Fields stretched out like a patchwork quilt, rivers glimmered in the sunlight, and small houses seemed peaceful from above. Suddenly, a loud, unsettling clunk echoed through the cockpit. Emily froze for a moment, her hands gripping the controls. The plane shuddered slightly, and she felt a vibration through the floor. Her first instinct was to remain calm. She reminded herself of everything she had learned. Stay composed, observe carefully, and identify the problem before reacting. "Okay," she whispered to herself, trying to steady her racing heart. She scanned the instruments, checking for any unusual readings. Everything seemed normal in terms of engine power, fuel, and altitude, but the vibration persisted, growing more noticeable. Then she saw it. The left landing gear, the wheel she had relied on for a smooth landing, was dangling strangely, not aligned with the plane's body. Her stomach dropped. Panic tried to rise, but she pushed it down. She remembered the first rule of flying: stay calm, assess, and act. Emily took a deep breath, trying to steady her hands. She reached for the radio to contact the flight instructor on the ground. "Tower, this is Emily Parker, student pilot. I think there is a problem with the landing gear," she said, her voice slightly trembling but steady enough to be understood. The instructor's voice crackled back over the radio. "Emily, stay calm. Describe the problem exactly. Are you able to maintain altitude?" Emily explained the situation clearly, trying to ignore the rising fear in her chest. She repeated that the landing gear seemed to have detached partially. The instructor's voice was calm, reassuring, and professional. "Listen to me, Emily. You have trained for emergencies. Follow the checklist, maintain altitude, and don't make any sudden movements. You can do this. I will guide you." Emily nodded to herself, even though the instructor couldn't see her. She realized that no one else could physically be with her in that plane. She had to handle this alone. The realization was both terrifying and empowering. Every skill she had practiced suddenly felt more important than ever. Every minute in training had prepared her for a moment like this, even if she hadn't imagined it would happen so soon. The next few moments were tense. Emily carefully reduced her speed, keeping the plane steady. She tried small, controlled turns to see if she could stabilize the dangling landing gear. She thought about what she had learned in emergency procedures: maintain control, choose a safe landing area, and keep communicating with the tower. Her mind raced with possibilities. She imagined different scenarios. What if the plane tipped on landing? What if it skidded off the runway? What if she lost control entirely? Each thought was frightening, but Emily forced herself to focus on one task at a time. She reminded herself, panic will not help. Skill and calm will. Emily scanned the ground below for a safe place to land. The main runway at the airport was in sight, but it felt far. She also noticed a smaller, unused strip nearby, a grassy area that seemed long enough for a cautious landing. Carefully, she calculated her approach, considering the wind, altitude, and speed. Every decision mattered. The plane continued to hum steadily, though the vibration from the broken gear persisted. Emily's heart pounded, but she felt a strange sense of clarity. In moments like these, there was no time for self-doubt. She was fully in control of her actions, fully present in the cockpit, and fully aware of the consequences of every move. The instructor continued to guide her over the radio. "Emily, you are doing very well. Keep your speed slow and steady. Prepare for a gear-up landing. Focus on keeping the nose up, and don't make any sudden turns." Emily nodded and repeated the instructions to herself, a mantra to calm her nerves. She adjusted the flaps and throttle, keeping the plane level as she prepared for descent. Every second felt longer than the last, but she knew she had to act methodically. She reminded herself that fear is normal, but courage is acting despite fear. As she approached the landing area, the plane shuddered slightly, reminding her of the damaged gear. Emily focused on keeping the plane straight. She aligned it with the runway and gently reduced altitude. Her eyes scanned the landing strip, noting any obstacles or uneven terrain. She felt a mixture of fear and determination, knowing that this moment would test everything she had learned. The first touch of the plane on the runway was nerve-wracking. The wheels on the remaining gear held steady, but she felt the body of the plane scrape slightly against the ground where the gear had failed. Emily held her breath, keeping the controls steady. She applied the brakes gradually, careful not to tip the plane. The plane skidded slightly but remained upright, rolling slowly toward the end of the runway. Emily's hands were tense on the controls, her knuckles white, but her mind was focused. She followed every step she had practiced in simulations and training. Slowly, the plane came to a complete stop. Relief washed over her in a wave so strong she almost forgot to breathe. She had done it. She had landed safely, despite the damaged gear, and she was completely unharmed. Emergency crews were already rushing toward her plane, and she could see their expressions of surprise and concern. "Are you okay?" one of them shouted. Emily nodded, her voice trembling slightly. "Yes, I'm fine." Her heart was still racing, but the fear had given way to a profound sense of accomplishment. She had faced a real emergency and survived. As she climbed out of the plane, Emily realized the full weight of what had happened. She had been alone in the sky, faced a sudden mechanical failure, and landed safely using only her skills and training. It was a moment that could have ended in disaster, but her calmness, preparation, and determination had turned it into a triumph. Her parents arrived moments later, rushing to hug her. Tears welled up in their eyes as they listened to her recount the events. "You were amazing," her father said. "You stayed calm when it mattered most. We are so proud of you." Her mother clutched her hand, relief and pride shining in her eyes. "You handled it perfectly, Emily. You're stronger than we ever imagined." Emily felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. She had always dreamed of flying solo, but this experience had taught her that flying was not just about freedom. It was about responsibility, courage, and the ability to remain calm under pressure. She realized that the sky could be unpredictable, and being a pilot meant being prepared for the unexpected at all times. That day, Emily learned a lesson she would never forget. She understood that fear was not something to run from. It was something to manage, understand, and overcome. She also learned that preparation and training could make the difference between disaster and survival. And most importantly, she discovered a new sense of confidence in herself, a belief that no matter how difficult the challenge, she could face it with courage and skill. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Emily looked at the small plane she had just landed. It was scratched and slightly damaged, but it was still standing. And so was she. This experience, terrifying as it had been, had strengthened her. She knew there would be other challenges, other emergencies, and other moments of fear in her future. But she also knew that she had the courage, skill, and determination to face them. Emily's story spread quickly at the airport and in her community. Everyone admired her calmness and bravery. She became an example for other young pilots, showing that courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. And while the events of that day would always remain vivid in her memory, Emily felt ready to continue her journey, more confident, more determined, and more inspired than ever. Emily sat in the cockpit, the engine's hum filling the small space around her, and tried to steady her. Breathing. The earlier moments of panic were fading, replaced by a quiet, intense focus. She knew that the most dangerous part of flying was still ahead, the final approach for landing. The landing gear was broken, the plane had already shown signs of strain, and every decision she made in the next few minutes would matter immensely. She adjusted her headset, listening closely to the instructor on the radio. "Emily, you're doing great. Keep your speed steady, your nose slightly up, and follow the glide path. Remember, slow and controlled movements. Trust yourself, you can make it." His calm voice helped her center her thoughts. Even though she was alone physically in the plane, she felt supported, guided by the knowledge and trust of someone who had trained her. Emily began her descent carefully. She kept the plane level, reducing altitude slowly while scanning the ground for any obstacles. The small airstrip she had identified earlier seemed long enough, but she knew it would be a challenge to land a plane with no landing gear intact. Every detail mattered: the wind direction, the plane's speed, the angle of approach. She repeated the instructions in her mind like a mantra, ensuring that panic did not cloud her judgment. The plane shuddered slightly as the damaged landing gear scraped against the wind, and Emily's stomach tightened. She reminded herself to stay calm. Fear could make her overreact and risk the entire landing. Instead, she focused on the control stick, the throttle, and the flaps, adjusting them with gentle precision. She was aware of every vibration, every small sound, and every movement of the plane. Below her, the runway appeared closer. Emergency crews were already lining the sides, their bright jackets catching the sunlight. She could see their tense faces, waiting and ready, though she did not allow herself to be distracted. Her attention was entirely on the plane, her training, and the approach. Emily lowered the flaps gradually, following the emergency procedures she had learned. She slowed the plane's speed to the minimum safe limit, knowing that she needed to touch down gently to avoid tipping over. Her hands were steady, her eyes focused, and her mind repeated the steps she had practiced countless times during her lessons. She felt a rush of emotion, fear, certainly, but also determination. She thought about her family, her dreams, and all the hours of training that had brought her here. She realized that all the preparation had been for this very moment, and now she had to trust herself completely. As the plane neared the runway, Emily began the most delicate part of the maneuver. She kept the nose slightly up, knowing that the main body of the plane would touch the ground first. Every second was critical. She felt the plane brush slightly against the tarmac, the vibrations running through her arms, and she adjusted the throttle carefully to maintain balance. The emergency crews watched closely, holding their breath as the plane skidded along the runway. Emily's focus never wavered. She kept the plane aligned perfectly with the runway, avoiding any sudden turns or jerks. Slowly, steadily, she managed to reduce the plane's speed while keeping it upright. She could feel the strain on the plane. The fuselage scraped gently against the runway, but the wings remained level, the tail steady. Emily knew that a sudden movement could result in tipping or skidding off the runway, so she kept her hands firm and her mind calm. Each second felt like an eternity, but she reminded herself that patience and control were her greatest allies in this moment. Her heart raced, but Emily's training took over. She had practiced emergency landings in simulations, but this was real, and the stakes were higher. She felt her body tense and her mind sharpen. Every instinct she had developed as a pilot came to the forefront, watching the instruments, adjusting flaps, controlling speed, and maintaining altitude and alignment. Slowly, the plane began to slow to a complete stop. Emily kept her hands steady on the controls, ensuring that the plane remained upright until it had fully lost momentum. Then, finally, the plane came to a complete halt. She exhaled deeply, a mix of relief, exhaustion, and triumph washing over her. Emergency crews rushed to her side immediately, but Emily remained calm. She unbuckled her seatbelt and carefully climbed out of the cockpit, her legs trembling slightly from the adrenaline. The ground felt solid beneath her feet, and she took a moment to absorb what had just happened. She had faced a dangerous, unpredictable situation and had managed it successfully, using her skill, calmness, and courage. Her parents ran to her, tears streaming down their faces. "Emily, oh my God, you did it," her mother cried, holding her tightly. Her father hugged her, his voice trembling with emotion. "You stayed calm. You did exactly what you needed to do. I am so proud of you." Emily hugged them back, feeling the weight of the experience settle in. It had been terrifying, but she had faced it with determination and had emerged stronger. The plane, however, bore the marks of the emergency landing. The fuselage had scratches, and one of the tires had been damaged, but it was intact. The instructors and emergency crews examined it carefully, confirming that Emily had managed the landing as safely as possible. They marveled at her composure, skill, and quick thinking. As the immediate danger passed, Emily reflected on the lessons she had learned. Flying, she realized, was never just about control of the aircraft. It was about control of oneself. Panic could be more dangerous than any mechanical failure. Focus, preparation, and confidence could turn a potential disaster into a successful outcome. She thought about the fear that had gripped her initially and how she had managed it. She remembered the clunking noise, the vibration, and the realization that the landing gear had failed. Instead of letting panic take over, she had relied on her training, breaking down the situation into manageable steps and handling each one methodically. That was what had saved her, and it was a lesson she would carry forever. Emily also realized the importance of trust. She had trusted her instructors, her training, and most importantly, herself. Each of these elements had come together in a moment of crisis, proving that preparation, guidance, and self-belief were invaluable. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the small airport, Emily felt a sense of calm satisfaction. She had faced one of the most frightening experiences a pilot could encounter and had succeeded. It was a moment of triumph not only in skill, but in courage and resilience. Her story quickly spread through the airport community. Other young pilots, her instructors, and even experienced pilots admired her composure under pressure. She became an example of courage, a living reminder that age and experience, while important, could be supplemented with careful preparation, determination, and a calm mind. Emily knew that this experience would shape her as a pilot forever. Every time she climbed into a cockpit from now on, she would carry the memory of this emergency. It was a reminder that the sky could be unpredictable, and the challenges faced in the air required not just skill, but mental strength, courage, and calm. That evening, Emily sat quietly at home, reflecting on the events of the day. Her hands still trembled slightly from adrenaline, but her heart was filled with pride. She thought about the fear, the tension, and the moments when every decision mattered. She realized that flying was not just about following instructions. It was about being present, aware, and prepared for anything. Her parents listened as she recounted the details of the landing, amazed at how calmly she described what had happened. They were not just proud of her skill, but of her courage, her presence of mind, and her ability to handle a frightening situation independently. Emily understood something important that night. True courage is not the absence of fear. It is the ability to act despite fear. She had been terrified, yes, but she had not allowed fear to control her. She had used her training, her focus, and her determination to succeed. That was a lesson that went far beyond flying. It was a lesson for life. As she prepared for bed, Emily looked out her window at the darkening sky. The stars were beginning to appear, tiny points of light in the vastness above. She felt a sense of connection to them, a reminder of the beauty and challenge of the skies she loved so much. The emergency landing had been a test, a trial she had passed. And though she knew there would be more challenges in her journey as a pilot, she also knew that she had the courage and skill to face them. Emily's story that day became more than just a tale of a student pilot landing a plane with broken gear. It became a story of determination, courage, and mastery under pressure. It showed that even a young pilot could rise to the occasion, face danger head-on, and succeed. And for Emily, it was a moment she would remember for the rest of her life. A reminder of what she could achieve when she trusted herself and stayed calm, focused, and determined. Emily stepped out of the plane and looked at it carefully. The scratches on the fuselage and the slightly bent flap reminded her of how close things had come to disaster. She ran her fingers gently over the smooth surface, feeling a mix of relief and pride. The plane had survived, and so had she. In that moment, she understood something very important. Flying was not just about skill. It was about courage, focus, and trust in oneself. She had tested all three, and she had passed. The emergency crews had already begun inspecting the plane. They were impressed by how well she had handled the landing. "For a 17-year-old, that was incredible," one of the officers said. "You stayed calm, followed the procedures perfectly, and landed safely. You should be very proud." Emily nodded, a small smile on her face. Pride mingled with exhaustion, but she felt stronger than ever. Her parents arrived, running toward her with wide smiles and tears in their eyes. They hugged her tightly, holding her as if never to let go. "Emily, you were amazing," her father said. "I knew you had it in you, but seeing you do it, I'm so proud." Her mother clutched her hand and said softly, "You kept calm when it mattered most. You are brave, smart, and strong." Emily smiled through her tears, feeling the warmth of their love and the weight of the day's events. The story of Emily's brave landing spread quickly. Within hours, people at the airport, local news reporters, and even nearby schools heard about the 17-year-old student pilot who had handled an emergency all on her own. Everyone was amazed at her courage and composure. She became an inspiration, a symbol of determination, careful training, and calm under pressure. Emily, however, remained humble. She understood that her success had not come from luck alone. It had come from countless hours of practice, careful study, and the guidance of her instructors. It had come from staying calm when fear tried to take control, and it had come from trusting herself, even when the situation seemed impossible. Over the next few days, Emily reflected on the experience. She thought about the fear she had felt when the landing gear failed, the shudder of the plane, and the tension in her hands and chest. She remembered the instructor's calm voice guiding her over the radio, and how each small, controlled action had brought her closer to a safe landing. It was a lesson she would never forget. She also realized that fear was not something to be ashamed of. Everyone experiences fear, especially in moments of danger or uncertainty. The key was not to avoid fear, but to manage it, to act carefully and decisively despite it. Emily had done that, and she knew that this lesson applied to all parts of life, not just flying. The airport community celebrated her achievement. Mr. Reynolds, her instructor, gave her a certificate of recognition. "Emily," he said, smiling proudly, "you have shown courage, skill, and determination. You've made every pilot here proud. Today, you are not just a student, you are a pilot who knows what it means to face challenges and overcome them." Emily felt a swell of pride, but also gratitude. She knew she could not have done it without the lessons, the support, and the trust of those who had guided her. Emily's friends and classmates were amazed by her story. Many of them had never flown before, yet they admired her bravery and skill. They asked countless questions about how she managed to stay calm, what she felt during the landing, and how she had learned all the necessary skills so quickly. Emily answered them with honesty and humility, sharing not just the thrill of flying, but also the importance of preparation, focus, and courage. Her parents, too, reflected on the events. They realized how much Emily had grown in just a few short weeks. She had always been determined and passionate, but the experience had strengthened her confidence and maturity. They knew that she was capable of facing challenges far greater than they had ever imagined. Emily also began to think about her future. Flying had always been her dream, but now she understood what it truly required: dedication, discipline, and courage. She wanted to continue training to become a certified pilot and perhaps one day to teach and inspire others as she had been inspired. The sky had always called to her, and now she felt ready to answer that call with even greater determination. In the days following the incident, Emily received messages from pilots, instructors, and aviation enthusiasts who had heard about her story. They praised her skill, her calmness, and her bravery. Some shared their own experiences of emergencies, while others encouraged her to continue pursuing her dreams. Emily felt inspired by their words and realized that she was part of a larger community, connected by a shared love for flight and a respect for courage and skill. Despite the attention, Emily remained focused on learning. She spent hours studying flight manuals, reviewing emergency procedures, and practicing maneuvers under the watchful eye of her instructors. She knew that every flight, whether routine or challenging, was an opportunity to improve, to learn, and to grow. Her experience also strengthened her relationship with her family. Her parents became even more supportive of her ambitions, understanding the seriousness of her training and the dedication required. They continued to encourage her while also ensuring that she remained grounded, safe, and thoughtful about her decisions. Emily also began to mentor younger students at the flight school. She shared her story not to boast, but to teach the importance of calm, careful action and the power of preparation. She explained how fear is natural, but can be managed with focus and skill. She taught them to respect the sky, to always check their instruments, and to trust in their abilities. Her experience became a lesson not just in flying, but in life. Over time, Emily returned to the sky, more confident and determined than ever. Each flight reminded her of the day she had faced an unexpected challenge and succeeded. She felt a deeper connection to the plane, to the sky, and to herself. She knew that flying was not just a hobby or a dream. It was a test of courage, responsibility, and resilience. Emily's story became a symbol in her community. Local newspapers wrote about her courage, and school assemblies highlighted her achievement as an example of determination and skill. She was invited to speak to students about her experience, emphasizing that preparation, focus, and courage could help them overcome any challenge, not just in flying, but in everyday life. Her experience also helped her understand herself better. She realized that challenges, no matter how frightening, were opportunities for growth. She learned that the mind's strength and the heart's courage are just as important as technical skill. She discovered a resilience she had not known before, a determination to face whatever challenges life might present. Emily's confidence grew not only in the air, but also on the ground. She approached schoolwork with renewed focus, handled personal challenges with patience, and engaged with her friends and family with a sense of calm assurance. The experience of handling an emergency had changed her perspective on life, showing her the value of preparation, courage, and calm determination. Months later, Emily returned to the airport, walking past the small plane that had been at the center of her most challenging flight. She ran her fingers over it gently, remembering every detail: The hum of the engine, the vibration of the fuselage, the tense moments on the runway. She felt gratitude for the plane, for her instructors, for her family, and most of all, for herself. She had faced fear, acted decisively, and succeeded. Looking up at the sky, Emily felt a sense of peace and purpose. She knew that flying would always be a part of her life, that the lessons she had learned would guide her in every challenge she faced, and that the courage she had discovered in herself would stay with her forever. She was ready for the future, ready to face the unknown, and ready to continue pursuing her dreams with confidence and determination. Emily Parker, the 17-year-old student pilot who had landed a plane with broken landing gear, became more than just a local hero. She became a symbol of courage, skill, and perseverance. She inspired others to follow their dreams, to face challenges with calm determination, and to trust in their abilities even when the odds seemed daunting. Her story was told and retold, not for fame or recognition, but as a lesson in bravery, preparation, and resilience. Emily herself knew that the true reward was not the applause or the attention, but the knowledge that she had faced fear, taken control, and succeeded. She had learned to trust herself, to remain calm under pressure, and to act with skill and courage. As Emily continued her training and prepared for a future full of flights and adventures, she carried the lessons of that day with her. The sky would always hold challenges, but it would also hold beauty, freedom, and possibility. And Emily knew that no matter what lay ahead, she had the courage, skill, and determination to rise to any occasion. In the quiet moments, when the plane's engine hummed and the wind rushed past the cockpit, Emily would remember the day she faced the impossible and landed safely. It would remain with her as a reminder of what she was capable of, a source of strength and inspiration for the rest of her life. And so, Emily Parker continued her journey as a pilot, stronger, wiser, and more confident than ever. She had touched the sky, faced fear, and emerged victorious. Her story would inspire generations of young pilots, showing them that courage, preparation, and determination could turn even the most frightening challenges into moments of triumph.